I am again joined by the lovely Zoe and the fantastic Des.
Hi!
So this is actually our second recording of this episode. We recorded the first one at the beginning of the month, and then when I went to edit it the next day, I realized there was no audio. Which for a podcast...
I mean, you could have just put up the YouTube video of us doing an interpretive, like, flailing version of the book.
I still want the gif of my flailing.
Oh, I have that. I can get you, because I still have the video. I just no sound. You're gonna have to remind me where roughly it was, as that's like an hour of footage. I'll get on that. Anyway, welcome to the second episode of Fish. I'm here for the story, the second attempt to film the second episode. And we, of course, covered the book Flying Too High, which did not have a companion episode. And I think at this point we've come to an agreement that we kind of get why. If you recall, our brains are now also pretty fuzzy. So this is gonna be real great. We should, if I wasn't on antibiotics, I'd be like, let's also be drunk while we do this.
Right?
Yeah, sure, I could get drunk at 11:30 in the morning.
This is why it's not fair that you're like so far away, because Zoe and I could reasonably...
Weekends are for day drinking,
it's after
right?
5 for me. I mean, it's perfectly acceptable for us, but...
Hey, it's a Friday
I
night.
am Australian, thank you very much.
You're Australian? Oh, that's fair. Drink what the First Order's drinking. Water.
I've got an entire bottle of orange juice to get through. I'm gonna have regrets.
Don't do it! Oh my gosh, no, Des, I tell you this with absolute love in my heart. How much of that have you already drank?
Second glass.
Within how much time?
20 minutes.
Okay, do not drink anymore.
Oh.
No, I'm saying this with so much love in my heart and experience. Okay, so you will give yourself acid reflux. That's a thing.
Huh.
A very dear friend of mine, when we were living together, we all made a Costco run, and we had too much orange juice to fit into the fridge. So us being dumbass college students are like, hey, let's fight scurvy. We've got 2 extra. We'll each have one. Don't. I have never been so sick in my life, because there's too much acid in orange juice. If you have enough of it, and I want to say, like, please don't push it to 3 glasses.
Okay, I've polished off like 3 liters of orange juice in one sitting and not had a problem.
Yeah, I used to drink it by like the half gallon.
Weird orange juice.
I mean, I grew up in Florida. So like...
Oh wait, no, that's because Zoe's a mutant, but I don't understand. Zoe grew up in Florida. No. I ate a half gallon, or 8. I drank a half gallon and I got so sick. Like, under 24 hours, I drank that all by myself. So sick.
How much?
Yeah, between me and my brother growing up, we used to go through about a gallon of orange juice every day and a half.
Gallon.
How do you not have diabetes? It's so much sugar. It doesn't matter that it's natural sugar. That's a lot of sugar.
It is a lot of sugar, and now that I'm...
Off topic. Speaking of sugar. It's like I planned it artlessly. No. Zoe, you freak of much orange juice, please, to the audience, how this book begins with your favorite named character.
Candida. So
I love that you always say it like she does in the fucking audiobook.
Because it's the only way that I can hear it if I don't hear it as Candida. Because when I initially read this, because we start off following the story of Candida, was she about 6-year-old child. However, for those unaware, Candida, which is how I initially read this, is a yeast infection. So so I read the first line of this book about 4 times, and then I went to a dictionary to make sure that I was right, not just making this up in my head. And then I went back and I was like, cool, this child has a very unfortunate name. And then I looked up the root of Candida, and it actually has to do with like the quality of whiteness and white, blah blah blah.
And
so
probably being candid and pure and upfront.
Yes.
And
So
it really is Candida.
Whereas for me, as an Australian, we just call it thrush. So I had no idea of any of this until like Zoe started ranting at me about it.
Lovely word, thrush. Thrush.
So,
Right.
well, I actually have a synopsis of the book in front of me if you would like me to read that.
No, please do. Do
Okay,
let's.
what happened again?
Now, according to Goodreads, Franny Fisher has her hands full in this, her second adventure, and just when we think she's merely a brilliant, daring, sexy woman, Franny demonstrates her other skills, including flying an airplane and doing her own stunts.
Wait, is that the
Yes,
synopsis?
Carrie?
Is that it?
No.
So first of all, I take issue with that sentence. When we thought this was all she was, fuck you! She, in the last book, just exposed a giant cocaine ring! Don't tell me when we just thought she was a sexy woman. Fuck you, synopsis.
And on to the second paragraph.
Do continue.
Franny takes on a fresh case. Where did that accent come from? Franny takes on a fresh case at the pleading of a hysterical woman who fears her hot-headed son is about to murder his equally hot-headed father. Franny, bold as we love her to be, what an odd synopsis, first stages the son in his own airplane at his sky-high flying school, then promptly confronts him.
Where the fuck is Canada in all this?
Then promptly confronts him about his mother's alarm. To her dismay, however, the father is soon killed and the son taken off to jail. Then a young girl is kidnapped, and Franny, who will never leave anyone in danger, let alone a child, goes off to the rescue. Engaging the help of Bert and Cess, the always cooperative Detective Inspector Robinson, and her old flying chum, Bungie Ross, Franny comes up with a scheme too clever to be anyone else's, and in her typical fashion saves the day with plenty of good food and hot tea all around. Meanwhile, because there's 500 different storylines in this book, Franny moves into her new home at 221B, the Esplanade, firmly establishes Dot as her Watson, and adds 2 more of her favorite characters, Mr. and Mrs. Butler, to the cast.
Is that it?
That's
Okay.
that's it. I'm done.
So, see, this is why I almost like to go through the book. Like, I almost prefer when we did it the first way, because then we could just
Fair.
stop, have a little chat, move on. There's so much. Where does one begin? Shall we start with the Esplanade? I think.
Sure.
I do
Yeah.
believe, Des, you did go to investigate that area.
I did. I wanted to see if it actually existed. And the best I can tell, there's no 221 on the Esplanade.
Aw, sad.
But that might just have been like Google Maps confused, or maybe it used to exist and doesn't anymore. I don't know. It could just be we want to make her a Sherlock nerd.
No, but I love that, and she does bring up the fact that she bought the house specifically for the number 221, and then added the B. Because I love that she's so nerdy, and that I don't know if I brought this up in the first episode or in the thing we attempted. That will be happening a lot during this episode. I love how every chapter begins with a quote or something.
Mm-hmm.
If just because it's a very interesting way to like work. I guess I'm not working. Like, it's a very lovely way, I think, of like further adding to. No, Franny reads a lot.
Yeah.
Which is why she'll quote a bit, and then even in the show, like you'll hear something, she'll just throw it in casually, and half the time you're like, wait, I actually think that's from something.
It actually worked into the show pretty nicely with her kind of having those like just random kind of toss-off lines about literature. Like, it works in that she reads a lot, and I think they include like some of the quotes from it pretty well.
Yeah, they do. And even in this book, she quotes Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember.
That's, yeah. I can't remember where it is, but there is the quote.
She uses the phrase, oh, it's offended. See, it stalks away. And I'm like, ah! Ah! Talking about the ghost from Hamlet, but not really. It's possible it's said to Bill McNaughton, but I can't, or about him. No, it's about the doctor. It's about the doctor. When
that poor doctor.
And the poor doctor. Let's begin with that. Mrs. McNaughton's in there, and Phryne's like, I don't think he's gonna kill your husband. I'll go talk to him. Blah blah blah. He ends up dead. Obviously, Mrs. McNaughton shows up and is like, he died. So it's like, oh well, I look like an ass now. And she's so hysterical that she keeps fainting, so they call the local doctor, who's a very handsome chap, and very easily startled, and apparently very easily offended. Phryne's like, God damn it, man! And he's like, gets all offended and butthurt.
He just doesn't know how to handle Phryne. It's hilarious.
He doesn't at all.
Giving a puppy to a lion and saying, this'll be fine. Nothing will go. Oh, did you get some up your nose?
No, just almost did the spit take. It's fine.
But it's just so. But tying into that, the reason that the mother the mother is already like Mrs. McNaughton is fragile. She is a fragile person.
Wait, I've got a quote for this.
Oh, fantastic. Also, is there an R there? Because I've only listened to the audiobook. Is it Norton or is it Naughton?
Naughton. McNaughton.
Cool. I wasn't entirely sure if it was just the narrator's accent. Sorry, do continue.
Yeah. So, Mrs. William McNaughton reminded Phryne of jelly cake and aspens and other quivering things, but there was steel under her flinching.
Oh, okay. Alright. What a great way to describe someone who clearly been through abuse. Because first you talk about, okay, this woman has been sort of normally she's very jelly-like, but she's got steel in her bones. But even the steel at this point is flinching, and I'm like, that's a great image.
It is, and it plays. It's suggestive enough, and it plays off of what we already know about her husband, which is that he's kind of a bully. He's a bully. He's a hothead. The son is the same way, and it just combining that, it says a lot about the character while just getting it across in that sentence. So it's really great description.
And we as we meet Amelia, who I don't think is, it's a little foolish, but I guess there's brevity. Amelia, who is the daughter, and sister, comes to pick up her mom, and through the daughter she finds out that William McNaughton was a brute, physically and sexually abusive to both. And through the discussion we get a beautiful little moment where Phryne, we're both fortunate to have lovers.
Can bring us out of our shell.
I'm trying to find it, yeah.
It's very beautiful where it's like, oh shit, Phryne just admitted to also having this. And then, I apologize for this episode, you guys, because this is going to be a lot of us realizing we had made these great connections in our last recording of it and then lost it.
So I have it in front of me. She said, bleh.
She's Dracula.
She said, but it happens to a lot of women. You and I are fortunate that we have found lovers who could coax us out of our shells. Yeah. It's, yeah.
And we speculated a little bit last time we talked about, oh, maybe that is... We really want Murdoch Foyle to be a thing. Because he's so good
It's
in the show.
it's such a good storyline, and it's such a good tie-in for her, and it's such a good foil for her.
But there were so many Egypt references.
There was a lot of Egypt
So
references
many.
through this whole thing, which was relevant to the story, but it seemed mentioned enough that you're like, this seems to be very highlighting it. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't want to give any. But it's very excited. I was like, and maybe unlike in the show where it's her sister, maybe still holding out. I want it, you guys. Anyway, Amelia through that talk, and Amelia is an artist. She is dating a man named
Was it Paolo?
Paolo Ragazzi.
Paolo.
There we go. Paolo Ragazzi. It sounds like a delicious. Ragazzi just sounds like a delicious ricotta based. I don't know. You know, it sounds Ragazzi. But he's a sculptor. And she was like, "Oh, Dad hated him because he's a foreigner and because
Clearly just after Amelia's money that she doesn't get if she marries anyway.
Yeah, I know, right? And so she's like, "Oh, Dad even hired a private eye to see if you're sleeping with his models." And Frida's like, "And was he?" It's like, "Oh, yes, but I don't care about that." And you're like, "All right." This is something I realized when trying to jog my memory and re-listening. And it was a little bit heartbreaking, and I don't know if this was intentional or if it is, and Carrie Green. But I find it very interesting that when describing herself with Paolo, because she's talking about it in a very artistic, if she were a piece of art that he was helping mold, but instead of referring to herself as the subject, as in a subject of art, she refers to herself multiple times as an object.
Wait, really?
Yeah, when one is placed so much work into an object or something like that, and I was like, this is at least twice, if not 3 times in that conversation. I think she's an object, and I was like, I stopped to make a note of it on my phone. Really take the note. But I was like, that's interesting. So clearly Amelia doesn't have the best. I mean, we know she doesn't have the best opinion of herself. She's a great artist of portraiture, but not super confident. Detective Inspector Benton. To deal with instead of the lovely.
What an ass!
Please share your opinions of this man. Let me stop.
He's every middle-aged white man I've ever had the displeasure of talking to.
Well, I really like how Phryne deals with him, because he's just so obviously just standing there being like, a woman can't handle any of this stuff, and he's actively trying to freak Phryne out. He's like, oh yeah, the rock's got blood and brains all over it. Aiming to shock this young woman out of her unnatural composure. So he's so uncomfortable with the fact that she's handling this so well that he considers her to be her current stature to be just unnatural. That's his view. And I'm like, Phryne, handle him.
But he's the one who has investigated this murder, has decided that Bill clearly is the one who did it, despite the fact that there really isn't any evidence other than, well, we know that they have fought. We find out this inspector is referred to as Old Theory, because he's always got a theory for something, and he seems to always want to make the situation fit that rather than adapt his theory to the actual evidence. Weird.
Although we should discuss briefly before we move on. In between those things, Phryne goes to the flight school and talks to Bill McNaughton, the son, and she does this. She introduces herself by going, "Hi, I want to fly your plane. And initially he kind of laughs at her, and she's like, well, will you let me fly this, and you'll be the co-pilot. And he kind of like humors her. And then she drags him up into the air. About, I think they said something like it's over 300 feet. Takes him up as high as she can get, and then because it's an old plane, she puts her foot down on the cables that will let him take over the flight capabilities, and then goes into a spinning nosedive as fast as she can, and then she pulls them out of it in order to scare him. Or just to have fun. It's actually pretty unclear as to if she's just like, this is a fun thing that I can do, or this will really freak him out, or both.
Both is good.
Both, let's be honest. She then is like, great, can you just keep us flying in a straight line? And he's like, yes. And she goes, okay. And then gets up, gets out of the cockpit, walks her way all the way to the end of the wing, and then turns around and walks back. And then gets back in, and everyone's just like...
Which is apparently, if you have the audiobook and you listen to the whole interview with the author, which is great, apparently is actually a trick that was done back in the day, and if you had a flyer good enough at keeping it level, it was actually quite a simple trick, despite the fact that it seems like it's terrifying as long as you were wearing that were appropriate or barefoot. Happy, like, Carrie Greenwood. Doing your research, even though this came out, I want to say early 1990. So it's all
thereabouts.
It was somewhere between 88 and 90, because I feel like the first three came out like within a year of each other, like bam, bam, bam.
90, and then I think
yeah.
Because the other one was 89.
Yeah.
Yes.
First published in 1990.
So she had to do her research the old-fashioned way. In fact, Bungie is apparently actually based on a person from history, British, named Bungie. Apparently nothing like her, though. The audiobook, I highly recommend if you were to wear at the end that there's an interview. Anyway.
Now I need the audiobook.
I do. Well, you know what? I'll just let you listen. And, anyway. Moving on.
Right. So it occurred to me that we discussed the fact, like, we only jumped on Candida's name. We haven't actually spoken about what happened to her, like, when that all went down.
You know what? We'll get to that.
Cool.
There's a weird loose connection. There's a dude at...
Oh, yeah.
They're very loosely connected. Like, it sort of feels like, we need another case thrown at me. Like, the book wasn't long enough with just one case, so they decided, this one as well. Where you've got, they're connected because a man named Jack Leonard, who is a friend of Bill McNaughton, is also business partners with a man named Henry Moulton, who won the Irish lottery. Why his daughter was kidnapped. So Jack Leonard gets to witness Franny doing all the tricks. Dot nearly has a heart attack.
Yes.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, her name.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
We noticed that in this book, in book 2, her name, in one book she is called Dorothy Bryant, which was the first one, and then in this book she's called Dorothy Williams. And apparently, according to the notes that we have, this is why it was changed to Williams in the show, but in the Kindle versions, book 1 actually has her referred to as both.
Yeah, when they're having the room searched because someone's put cocaine, I think it was, in Franny's hotel room, at that point, Franny refers to Dot as Miss Williams, whereas earlier in the book she's introduced to as Dorothy Bryant. So maybe Franny's just like, I want you to be Miss Williams now. I've decided. Well, this is you now.
Then you get the Watson, my Williams, my Franny Fisher, Sherlock Williams, I don't know. Fisher Williams, I don't know.
My new headcanon's that Franny just...
I have a sneaking suspicion she forgot to, it was Bryant at one point, and she forgot to change, like, that first mention of it.
Yeah.
find and replace wasn't a thing yet or something. I don't know.
Nope.
That's what I saw a forum post somewhere that actually touched on it, and they're like, oh yeah, word of author is that there was just a reference that was missed.
Oh, see, that gives you hope. Even fantastic authors who get their books made into fantastic series and movies because it's funded.
Ooh, it is?
Yeah, it got funded. Way overfunded.
Oh, that's right. It was way overfunded.
Yeah.
Super overfunded.
But, even they make mistakes, such the like, so.
But I love Dot's introduction in this book.
Yes!
It's just Dot, who had come by way of attempted manslaughter into Phryne's service, was a conservative young woman who had so far resisted the temptation to bob her long brown hair.
Who had come by way of manslaughter. Attempted manslaughter.
Attempted, yes. Which, to be fair, with Phryne could mean a lot of things.
Oh god, they almost tripled their goal.
Because in the show, it was actually by way of murder. So, not her murder, not her attempt committing them. Obviously, it would not her murders. Then she'd be dead. Anyway.
You have a ghostly.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Well, I was just looking at the Kickstarter page, and like they've got a picture for their 700,000 stretch goal having been reached, and I'm just like, now kiss.
Right?
Have you two seen this picture?
No, I haven't.
Oh, jump on the Kickstarter page sometime and have a look.
I will, but right now we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not getting on right now.
Yeah, no.
That's not happening.
Definitely not. Anyway.
Um.
Ignore the key sounds! But anyway, so there's this dude, Paolo Ragazzi. Let's get back to him. So
I didn't feel.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't feel like, because I mean, it was kind of like, oh yeah, no, he's sleeping with other women, but I'm the one he, goes home to effectively. But to me, it didn't really feel like she was necessarily on board with it. She was accepting of it, but not necessarily happy about it.
Yeah, no, she'd accepted it, but she didn't obviously seem very like, no kiss!
I managed to contain that one. It's such a now kiss, which we have had none of in the book so far.
Because all Jack Robinson appears in is a phone call. But we'll get to that. She's teasing us. So, point being, what I do want to say about Paolo is something that bothered me is the way that it's worded in the book. Is it sort of seemed like Phryne was finding out info that maybe wasn't super public. I don't know. And then she goes to talk to Paolo, and at one point he says something that I'm like, is that public information? Like he talks about like the rock hitting William McNaughton, and I was like, is that, or did he just give himself away?
Because at the point that she goes to him, he is the prime suspect because he's Amelia's lover, and if she marries him, she won't get any of her father's inheritance, is how his will is set up.
There's that, and there's also the fact of that if he does truly love her, this is a man who abused her, and has made her life miserable. So, and multiple people, and I love this, multiple people basically are like, kind of hope you don't catch the killer.
It's like, if you work out who it is, just congratulate them for me and just
what was, I can never remember her name.
It's like
the singer.
Isabella?
She pops up occasionally, but she literally says, what did I say last time? If you figure out who killed him, I'll thank fuck them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Oh, and happens because Phryne and Paolo go to dinner together at this cute little Italian restaurant. They run into the singer from the first book, as she's briefly mentioned in that as well. She appears, and So it's nice to see. It's nice to see some reoccurring characters, even though they show it very briefly. I was like, oh, it gives it that sort of ensemble cast feel that I really feel like. But the point I wanted to bring up is this dinner happens after she sleeps with him, and this is the one time that, like, okay, I love Phryne. I am totally here for Phryne's sexuality, and she can, whatever. But I'm reminded of a quote that happens in the next episode that we will be watching, as probably not the next book, but I find it a fantastic quote. And it is, "I don't allow myself to be lustfully compromised during my murder investigations." And to this I say, oh, really? Because he had not been cleared yet. In fact, at that point, he was looking pretty good as a suspect. And she didn't really interview him until after they'd fucked and gone to dinner. And I was like, Phryne, this is stupid.
It was...
Like,
oh, Phryne.
It seems, like, not safe. Also, it bothers me because I'm like, I don't feel like Amelia was really okay. Like you said, I don't think she was really okay with it. She was resigned. Then when they got married, this was a thing she'd have to put up with. And I'm like, okay, young 20-something-year-old Phryne, I feel like your older counterpart would not be this dumb nor inconsiderate. That was something that kind of, that just bothered me. Like,
But hopefully she'll grow out of sleeping with prime suspects.
Right? Like, I mean, sleep with whoever you want. Just be safe and smart.
And move on to policemen.
Someone who's like, yes,
I said, and move on to policemen.
A particular one, please. Anyway, and she's someone who feels like she probably hasn't had many friends, and is like, "Oh, you're wonderful. Please don't leave me." At one point, she even says. So I'm like,
yeah. I will say, so we've only read the one book, but this is one of several instances, and I'm sure we'll talk about the one that comes up at the end of the book before we finish, but there are a couple of instances in this book where I'm like, I don't know if book Phryne is actually just makes more questionable decisions and more morally questionable decisions than TV show Phryne, or if this is the second book slump that a lot of authors have of like, I made a first book, I made a character, I now have a second book, I have to create a second book, I still don't quite know my character, and so some of the decisions don't quite line up with the character we think we know.
I'm hoping it's that one, because, there's a few things in here.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah, no, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that one.
So, investigating murder, all that jazz, comes across this kidnapping in the same...
As you do.
As you do. She goes to get a license plate. She calls Jack for a license plate. Talked with the family, and she's like, okay, well, it's good you didn't call the cops, but, like, got that partial license plate. She calls Jack so she can get info on that, and that's, like, their only interaction.
Which is really amiable from him.
It is. It's interesting, because in the show, I feel like it takes him quite a bit to, like, fully warm up to her as like, a partnership, and maybe it's because this isn't his case, so he's not really bothered. But I'm like, you are super amiable. In fact, recommends Benton, like, her to Benton. Like, is like, you know what? She's all right. Like, highly praised her to this freaking guy. So I'm like, yes. But because of this, and because she goes to the morgue and the evidence of the actual, she wants to see the actual stone that he was hit. We get to meet WPC Jones again!
Who has gotten an award!
Yes!
I'm so happy that she had an award.
Currently, the one thing that has me a little bit upset about the show so far is that WPC Jones doesn't seem to be in it.
No.
I think she's mentioned very offhand at some point, but that's it.
Well, I think at the point the fact that there isn't a woman police constable about is why Phryne gets sort of allowed to step in a lot of times. Maybe they use... One thing I love about the books is that there is a cast of strong women to actually be reoccurring. so far. Like,
Yes.
I'm very sad Mac is not in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Get it? Franny needed to get laid by someone who wasn't Paolo. I'm very sad Mac is not in this book. I was very excited to see. Starts with an I. I'm pretty sure it's Isabella or something like that. Return of the Singer. I have on accident realized that we get to see more of Bungie, so Bungie's going to be returning, and WPC Jones,
Yes.
which makes me very happy. And oh wait, I can't talk about that yet because we're still talking about WPC Jones and her award. Sorry.
The singer's name is Isola Di Fraioli.
Isola. Sorry, thank you. Like it starts with an I. Isola.
I searched for singer.
I do like the way they handle WPC Jones, because she gets her award for catching the Brunswick rapist, was it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, it was pretty much that she had to be, restrained because she was effectively going to castrate the guy.
Like, I love her. And she and Franny get to have a coffee, and it's like they're actually building up. And I'm like, look, you've got a sexy femme fatale lady who's got a ton of female friends. It's almost as if women actually get along and not do a whole stereotype. That's one thing I really do appreciate about both the series books so far, is that a lot of times I feel like the trope is for that femme fatale who can play along with the boys, so to speak, or whatnot, is always very, like, a very strange undercurrent of
Mm-hmm.
I feel like with those characters very often, and she's like, "No, we're all awesome. I love dudes. I love girls. Everyone's great. Let's all be friends or lovers or more."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it often comes off very. If you're one of the boys, you can't be one of the girls.
Yeah, and I find it very happy and refreshing.
Mm-hmm. But still, with multiple very strong women, like WPC Jones put herself in a position to potentially be horribly assaulted.
Yeah.
And came out of it being restrained from castrating someone. I mean,
and Bungie is one of the best flyers, and in fact has taken some of Bill's former students and helped them learn how to fly because he was kind of a terrible teacher and a bit of a braggart. And then Henderson, Gillian Henderson, who is the lawyer.
Oh,
that,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the lawyer that she hired.
Gets upset with Franny.
Bill. And I'm like, freaking A, also great woman, and so hilarious. At the end, she's very upset. I think the last line of the book is like, "Damn it, Franny, you lost me my murder." Like,
which is also one of my favorite lines in this book.
You're just like, also, yay, but fair, I get it. She's like,
because that was going to be like the thing that helped put her seriously on the radar.
yeah, because she's a woman lawyer, and they don't shy away from the fact that, like, it means you got to deal with more. And I'm like, good for you, Jillian.
I like the way that in her conversation they worked that in, because like basically they clear Bill of being the murderer, and they all go to get a drink. Specifically, Bill gets a lot to drink, and basically just drinks an entire pitcher of beer. And they're talking. They they offer her a drink or something, and she's like, "Nope, I can't drink. I have to meet with clients. They tend to get upset if you stink of alcohol. This is a very dry profession." Like it's that like.
Yeah. She has to be above the law, basically.
Yeah, I have to be above it. I have to be like, everyone else might have to be here. I have to be like, here. Yeah. Otherwise, like, I got nothing. It was worked in really well into like her mannerisms and the way that she talked.
Yeah, and I like that. Carrie Greenwood, I feel like, despite the fact she loves to tell you everything about what people are wearing, very good at showing you what kind of people.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Anyway, so before we can get to that, sorry, it's a bit everywhere. So we're going through, and she looks at the stone, which has a gray matter and a tiny bit of string on it and whatnot. And she's like, interesting. And also Bert and Cess, and I love this because it's the first time we get to really see Bert and Cess really on the case. In the way that they are in the show with her. Like, I need this done. And they're like, okay, let's go. And Cess is engaged! At least it says...
Oh, yes!
It refers to
as is intended.
But it's only been 3 months instead of. That actually means like no, I'll marry you anyway. Like before they got to the 6-month marker of him asking again. But I'm very happy for him. So they're gonna go and they want to investigate the lawn where everything was. They're gonna investigate the other side of the street. Like where did because one of the big things was where did the stone come from? Because there's literally nothing in that yard.
I love that moment though with the policeman,
Yes.
where he's just like, well, this is the answer, and she goes, "Huh? Where'd the stone come from?"
And he's like,
It's just like
what?
clearly
What?
this was premeditated.
Yeah,
then.
she's like, yeah, everything's hinging on the fact that like he got really upset and he killed his dad like in a moment of passion, but where did this giant rock come from? Like, and it was very just like offhanded, just like, but where'd the stone come from, man? Like,
Because she's like flattering him and being like, oh, I have so much to learn from you. Da, 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 da. Where'd the stone come from? What? Well, I don't see any stones. If it was a crime of passion, where'd the stone come from? And he's like, it was premeditated! Right, because when I decide I'm gonna kill my father, and I want to plan that out, I'm gonna do it with a stone.
yup, obviously.
Right, sir.
Mm-hmm. In a generation of guns and knives, we can go with a stone.
And Bert and Sess go in and they investigate. They find the kids, because Amelia loved to have kids come into her backyard and play, and they talk, and I feel like I'm talking too much. Someone else.
And the kids are doing, like, this is another instance where we kind of get that whole Egypt thing being rolled in, because these kids, like, they're trying to mummify a cat, which ends badly for them.
Oh god, that's right, I'd forgotten about that. A live cat, for the right. It was a live cat.
And the way it's written is so great, because they write it like they're trying to they're trying to bandage the cat, da da da. And they're like, what were you guys trying to do anyway? And then they have the kid tell him, but they don't let the reader know what. And all he says is, they're supposed to be dead first. And you end up finding out at the reveal at the end of like, oh, the kids were playing Egypt. They were trying to mummify a cat. They had built a little pyramid. You end up finding out that's what actually happened. Is these kids had a pulley system. Were building a pyramid with these giant stones they got from like a construction of a road that was happening a little down the ways. And angry dad guy comes out and is like, you kids, is stupidly magically standing right under the fucking rock. It drops on his head. The kids go, run away! And they all scram. And when Amelia came back, she thought that Phil did it and was like, and decides to like
Hide the rock.
And like throw the pyramid stuff over so that the kids wouldn't have to be involved. And she was like, okay, I'm gonna protect my brother. And then they have.
I liked the way that I like the old lady.
Huh?
This book has two endings, I feel like.
The old lady.
Sorry, Jess.
The old lady who owns the cat. Who Sess brings the cat to her and is like, hey, here's what happened, I've got your cat. They bond because Sess is like the animal whisperer, and it's a beautiful moment they have.
And I realized, like, when we watched the first episode, that there's a speech in the book about how, like, he says, Bert's going, you bring home all of these cats and these animals, and he brought home a dog at one point, and, like, he's just going on.
Bring home a girl.
Yeah, like,
it's in the show, too, and then you're like, oh, we get to see it, like, there it is. Like,
yeah, I love that. Like, we see a lot more of Sess's personality in the books, and I love it. I love it so much, and it was a nice little nod to, because he was like trying to take home this cat. It was a nice little nod to like the first book being like, oh, this is just a thing that he does. He's like, oh, but you tiny thing, let me just take you.
Which I get that. I always want to steal cats.
Before we get to the second ending, because I don't want to skip over, because you did mention it in your synopsis, we do get, while we are still without Constable Collins, we are still without Aunt Prudence, we did get Mr. Butler!
And Mrs. Butler.
Ooh, which makes me both excited and worried.
Yes.
Because part of me is like, oh, they probably just wanted to consolidate down, and like we're like, okay, well, we've got Dot, so we'll just keep Mr. Butler, and that'll be fine. Mr. Butler, who is Ted instead of Tobias, which I'm not entirely sure if Ted is a pet name for Tobias. It's just
Pet names are weird.
They are. Like,
Yeah.
How ever did we get Dick for? I don't get it. As a term of endearment, I don't know. Oh, Dick. Or so many where you're like, what? Anyway. Hey, baby. Or because Ted is technically, like, I think, a nickname for Theodore, definitely, and that even is a letter.
Yeah.
You have to take out a lot of letters for that to be a thing. But I'm worried because I'm like, okay, this could be just them consolidating. Or is it possible, because these are a lot of books about murder mysteries, does something bad happen to Mrs. Butler?
Yeah.
I hope not.
I really
No.
And I'm gonna quote two things from Mr. Butler from the show that makes me really upset, because he clearly does, like, even though she's not in the series, like, she's a part of him and his character. And they're both from the same episode, which is episode 10 of the first season, Death by Misadventure. But that's when I hear Mrs. Butler's voice. And then another one is, I'm not a religious man, not since the day Mrs. Butler passed. And I'm just like, don't ever, ever, ever die either of you little buns. But it's also possible that they just combined Mrs. Butler and Mr. Butler, because Mrs. Butler is the cook, and Mr. Butler is not, obviously.
Yeah, see.
The original.
My first encounter with Mr. Butler. So my first encounter, and like what I go straight to at any time I think of Mr. Butler, the first episode that I saw was the one where he was high. That was my first encounter with him.
This is one of the reasons I really want them to just keep Murdoch foil, because that would not happen otherwise.
It's true. It's so
Beautiful
good.
episode we got to that I think actually is Death by Misadventure, where Butler accidentally eats some brownies with hashish. Gets very high, not knowing that they're
Pretty naked.
fairly naked. Yes. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Not funny to anyone who hasn't seen it yet. Don't watch ahead. Oh, do watch ahead. I don't care. It's an amazing show. I wouldn't be able to.
It's so good. Watch all of it.
I would not be able to watch just one.
Do you know how self-control it takes me at the moment?
We're working real hard, I promise. You can watch the next one. We should be on Murder at the Ballarat. Anyway. Okay. You
So,
are
okay.
a guinea pig, though, right now, Des, because you haven't seen these.
True.
Getting to
Candida.
Des, would you like to explain who has taken Candida?
So, Candida finds a couple of cents at her parents' place and decides that the sensible thing to do is naturally to escape the house and go buy some lollies.
Those lollies. We looked them up, didn't we?
Yeah, of which the only one I could get a hold of is I've actually got some of the bananas. And I've been just
They're
casually
bigger
sitting
than I
here
thought they were.
Yeah, they're soft and they break easily.
Huh. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The circus peanuts for us are bright orange, but they're like that marshmallowy texture that it looks like those
They're
are made
like-
out of.
They're like that.
What?
Tell you what the flavor is? They're not really peanuts. They
I don't-
taste peanuts.
They taste
What?
like orange.
Do they? I
Like-
think it's so long since I've
No,
had them.
not. I don't think I've ever had one. But as I remember,
at some point, Des, I'll tell you what. I will get circus peanuts for the next time we record, and I will show you what they look like.
Awesome.
I will even eat one, even though they taste terrible.
So
Anyway.
Canada goes and buys some lollies, and then gets kidnapped by it's Sid, who is, it's revealed that is a known pedophile and is being trying to be caught. There is
Don't worry, he doesn't get to Canada. Continue.
because she turns around and throws up on him, which.
Because he gets ethered, and then when you come out of that, you have a tendency to be a little nauseated.
And she has her moment where she's like, that felt like the right thing to do.
It's literally in there. She's like, you hadn't meant to do it, but it felt like the right thing to do. Like she'd done the right thing.
And it's oh god, what are their names? My names are blanking.
Mike is the guy, I can't remember the name of the
Mike.
terrible woman.
It's been too long and I'm always just bad at
His
names.
wife who wanted
Anne.
pretty things. Anne.
oh god, what a garbage human.
So,
Garbage human.
Mike seems... I think he tries to be a good person, but is just like ended up in a shitty predicament. Because his wife...
So I do remember what happened. Is essentially his wife really wanted to live the good life, got into debt with what sounded like a loan shark or the mafia, I don't know, couldn't obviously pay it back, and then they're like, alright, so then you're gonna help my guy Sid pull this kidnapping job, and that's how you'll repay your debt.
And Mike's just like, well, I guess I love her, so I will go along with this terrible, terrible idea.
Now, I feel like it's important to point out that while that all sounds like a bad situation, a terrible plan, they are the worst criminals. And they chose the worst child. Because this 6-year-old is so aware of herself and so aware of them. She is set up to be a very intelligent, very self-aware child. Like they talk about. And she's asthmatic, and that becomes important. But
she was...
go ahead.
She was a delicate asthmatic with the strength of 10 and the willpower of Attila the Hun. She was a sweet, affectionate angel who had nearly bitten her baby brother's ear off. Candida was very intelligent and had taught herself to read, but occasionally did things that were so stupid that Molly wondered if the child was touched.
One of my favorite quotes about her, and I thought that was going to be it, is essentially they talk about her biological mother had been put in a madhouse, and Molly, who's her stepmother, was fairly certain Candida had put her there. And you're like,
which, to be fair, the longer I listen to this child, she's a fantastic character. Like, reading her, she's a fantastic character, but I have definitely had moments while reading it going, this child would make me insane. Because at some point, Candida does literally look at these 3 people who have kidnapped her. One person that she is aware has a predilection towards children and just goes, you're not very good at this. Like, word for word, just, you're not very good at this. And Mike just kind of goes, like...
Because I think that's when they found out that they didn't have her teddy, they hadn't accounted.
They didn't have her medicine.
She's an asthmatic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you're not very good at this. Like, you had none of this. We're so clearly, obviously, first-time kidnappers. So much that a 6-year-old can figure out.
To be fair, though, this is also the 6-year-old. So she, the woman is this awful woman who is like, has no interest in her at all, has no interest in Candida at all, is such an asshole to her, and is trying to scare her because Mike has this tattoo of a spider on his chest, and she says something like, well, if you don't hold still, I'll tell the spider to jump right off of his chest and go eat you or something, and literally she goes, can I see it? Like... And he's like, I guess so. And like he moves his shoulder or something so it looks like the spider's moving. She's like, can you do that again? Like,
it's kind of funny how she fucking loves spiders. She collects them. Poor Molly.
Also
And
snails.
snails would she put by the oven to keep warm, and then I was afraid that she was gonna.
I was so
with like she woke up and they were all dead and like melted.
That's what I was concerned about, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who assumed that.
I was like, you don't. Well, because she said I put them by the stove, and I was like, no.
Because this was also an age where stoves meant fire.
Dry heat, Candida. Snails need to be where it is dark and wet and underground. God, but no, they crawled away. I was very worried of those snails. I was like, oh, okay, that was gonna be gross.
Also, I stand by that. Like, Anne is solidly just like an idiot.
The worst. Also terrible. So they decide through all of this, Sid's gonna go get the money, and that it's going to be stored in a tree stump. And Anne's like, no, I'm coming with you to make sure you come back. While they are together and alone, they decide, let's kill Mike when we get back. Mind you, this is Mike's wife. Let's kill Mike when we get back, and then we split the money 2 ways. We'll kill
Mike's wife, who is the reason that they are all here to begin with.
But clearly, she's dealing with a man who is willing to kill her husband, right? And she's like, I'll go along with this. This'll end fine with me. In what world does it not make you stop and think, then there'll only be me, and he'll have a gun?
Like, why? This woman is, this is why she's in the predicament. She doesn't think. This is why. Because she's like, oh, this'll be fine. I'll let him kill the little girl and my husband. It'll be fine. Not how that works. So they go.
Like the 6-year-old is spot on.
I hate them so much.
She's a terrible person. Meanwhile, during all this stupidity, Phryne has come up with the most ridiculous of plans. First, they don't have the money because the money from the water aid, shockingly, went into a new house and a new business venture. So they're not super rich. They, like, improved their life, but right now they're, like, on a normal salary again because they used it to basically go, okay, we're going to live in a proper house. We're going to have, like, we're going to invest to help us continue to do what we want, but, like, that's it. So they don't have it. So Phryne's like, okay, give me this amount of bills, and gets newspaper, and she dyes it, or whatever, and puts dollar bills on the outside of each. So it looks like big wads of cash, and that's what they stuff in the bag that they're gonna drop off. And so can you regale us what this insane plan is? Recall it.
So, fix my microphone. So, Phryne's simple and easy to follow plan is. It's so James Bondy. I feel like this solution is most of the reason that this was not made into a show.
Speaking of James Bond, I just have to bring up this beautiful quote by Kara Greenwood, which essentially is, Phryne is exactly like James Bond, she just has better lovers. I was like, you know what? None of them have tried to kill her, so well done.
True.
Well done, Phryne. Or more interesting lovers, I think is what she said.
Yeah.
Like, also, they're three-dimensional. They all have goals. They all have a character arc of some... Okay, fair. I will give you that. I will give you that so far. Oh my god, what is wrong with you? I am very certain it is not natural for people to be able to drink that much orange juice in such a short amount of time. Continue with this ridiculous plot that does not actually make any sense.
So they decide to take an airplane, wire a single car headlight onto the top that is a UV light that will...
I think the paint is UV paint. Like, it just
this paint is UV. It reacts to...
reflective, not UV.
It's reflective, that's what it is. So it's not a UV, right. So it's because it's a car, like headlight. So they wire that into the airplane, which is going to follow Phryne, because she has taken a bladder, like a pouch, filled it with reflective paint, strapped it to her body. She waits for them to pick up the money, climbs onto their bumper, hangs on to the back of the car, and at the same time squirts out like blobs of this paint behind the car for the airplane to follow back to their hiding place. Because an airplane at night with a big-ass headlight on it flying low enough to make the paint reflective is super stealthy.
So stealthy.
Part of this to me genuinely feels like it's a situation where they're like, well, like the worst application of Chekhov's hammer. Chekhov's gun, sorry. Where it's basically sitting there being...
If there's a hammer in the first act, something's getting pounded.
Did you just make Chekhov into a porn?
The hammer is his penis. Roll 34! And then my penis is Chekhov's dick. Okay.
Well, I feel like it's been, we're going to have a flying school involved and we want to show off Franny flying, and we should probably try and make use of this later on.
But she's not flying. Bungie's flying.
God.
I don't know, maybe it was the fact, like, I think you're right, though. I think it was something to do with there's too much planes in here, and we haven't done anything else with planes. We've got so many pilots, but not enough piloting. So we gotta work in a plane. See, I was expecting, like, okay, they're just gonna have, like, they'll mark the car.
Yeah.
Or something, and that's how they'll follow them from above, or whatever, but no. So they've got the plane flying, following the reflective paint some distance, and then they've got a car following the plane.
Oh, that's right. There's also the car following the plane,
Yeah, 'cause
which,
have
you know, so stealthy. Super.
Really, where the fuck is that plane gonna land?
Like, nothing about this, like, the car on the road should also be able to follow reflective paint, right?
Right?
Why do we need the plane? At all? The car's bound to be quieter. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, we get back to the house, and then, oh, surprise, surprise! Anne and Sydney are trying to turn on Mike, and then, I can't remember what he says, but Sid says something to Sid, where Anne pisses him off, and he turns to shoot her instead. Mike's like, you, and he's really angry, 'cause he's like, you were gonna set me up. And then Anne is dead, and it's actually kind of sad. Not really because she's dead, but because Mike is dead. And then
She was not a character I was sad to see die.
I was like,
Oh.
who cares? And then there was a
I was just kind of like,
well done, Sid. Best thing you've ever done. Now die, because you're also a terrible human. But sadly, no. I mean, yes, but not how I want. So Mike and Sid struggle. Franny, bruised and battered as she is, enters, is like, hold up his hand! And Mike's like, who the fuck? Okay. And then holds up the gun hand. Franny shoots his freaking wrist, hole through it, and I'm like, yeah, that ouch, but also, nice shot. And then all the dust settles, and she gets to find out what's going on.
Franny, why?
Realizes Mike is not a bad guy, and who wants to discuss what happens at the end of how they decide to resolve this?
I got this. So Franny's all like, Mike, not a bad guy. We'll just send him off. He can pretend that he was never here, and we'll just deny he was here. And Sid's basically like, you realize I can just dob him in, right? And he's like, what will you do to keep me quiet? And Franny's response was basically, I will get you a girl into the prison for like one last hookup before you die. Which
And
is
he's
kind
like,
of bad
"My
enough
kind
it is.
of girl?"
And she's like, I will get you out.
Sure.
Because she knows someone who, like, is very young looking and caters towards that, and it's kind of gross. It's gross.
Yeah, like, okay, I can't remember her name. I want to say something like Violet or something like that. Like, looks like a 12-year-old girl, even though she's not. And I'm like, okay, Franny. First of all, what the fuck? Second of all, who the hell was gonna believe him? Like, if you, like, Canada's smart. You could be like, Canada's gonna say, no, it was just him and the other lady. Or, you literally say, you have Mike there, you have him testify, say, I couldn't find out what happened to my wife, she stole my car, I tracked her down to this cabin, I found out what they were doing, I tried to stop them, he shot my wife, blah, 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 blah. Who the hell's gonna believe a pedophile saying, oh, he was in on the kidnapping? Because, first of all,
Nobody!
No one's gonna believe you, Sid. You are literally a wanted man. In fact, Jack Robinson during that conversation was like, oh, you could bring him in. That'd be great. I think that's where the brown paper and string comment came in, and she literally does deliver him to the police that is local to that house with brown paper and string, and is like, send this to Inspector Jack Robinson, please. And I'm like, oh, God, you're flirting with even...
So the girl, the basically the hooker, is Clara.
Clara. Why did I think it was like...
Her name is Clara, and she's described as a thin little gutter sparrow. Yeah.
Like gutter sparrow. What even is that phrase?
I don't know. Maybe it's.
And the other part of the explanation is ancient eyes stared out of a childish face. Like Clara's description is absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, and haunting, because you're probably like, this kid is like, seen some shit, and she knows, like, oh, it's just really, like, that's it's just upsetting that's how that sort of ends. And I'm not gonna lie, I ended this book feeling very unnerved and dissatisfied.
It's the first time, like, Friday's made choices where I'm like, Friday.
I honestly expected that to be a turnaround of some kind. I wasn't sure what kind, and then I got to the end, I'm like, nope, that was just that.
Yeah, like, she was gonna lie, or I don't even know. Even then, I'm like, who, like, I like, you need to do that. The idea that man, fictional, regardless if he's fictional, went to be hung even remotely satisfied, bothers me.
Yeah.
Fuck you if you do anything. I mean, fuck you if you do anything. Definitely, but, like, especially kids. Like,
yeah, it's... fuck.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think there is definitely the suggestion that Franny's not comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's very clear that she's not comfortable with it, and that she decided... But I'm not gonna lie, it felt very much like for me to accept this, I have to accept that Franny had a moment of stupidity. Like, she couldn't think of a logical way to get out of it otherwise. I'm just like, I don't...
Which may also come into the fact that she is once more much younger in the books.
And I'm trying to... Okay. Yeah. So, that's flying too high. And I'm not gonna lie, while I did really enjoy... that this wasn't made into...
Yeah.
A TV show. I also get why it wasn't.
For multiple reasons, yeah.
It was such a strange one.
So ridiculous.
Also, how many storylines?
Oh gosh, yeah. Like, why? Like, we were disjointed, just going,
Yeah. The ending also felt a lot like a scramble to tie things up.
Yeah. It
Like it definitely felt like I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this and I need to tie them all off.
Yeah. It did feel like it had two endings. Like,
yeah.
Well, I think that it's bad. The one part that I really enjoyed was that there's a random drover as they're driving along.
oh yes, when they're
'Cause
driving to chase
to the town, and it's just like a ton of sheep on the road. And there's a guy, so it's just a guy droving the sheep from like place to place. I think it's an Australian term, drover. It sounds Australian.
It is definitely not one that I had heard prior.
It's not. I heard of the concept. Like, I knew Britain and Ireland and Scotland occasionally run into that kind of issue out in the countryside, but it's definitely... I'm sure... No, I actually don't think we really have that here. Like, even... Like, if you've got a farm, you keep those sheep, like...
contained.
And contained, and we're probably terrible like that.
I mean, the only place I've ever experienced it was when I was in Costa Rica. And that was a mixture of cows and goats. And you just kind of waited.
I've been driving along and have come across the sheep and been like, this is Australia. This is what I am used to.
So, not connected to any of the story, really, but there was one of my favorite quotes in this book that I have highlighted is... Franny ate her trifle, reflecting that grinding poverty, though loathsome while one is in it, has the advantage of making one enjoy money in a way denied to the rich from birth.
Yes. It is a fantastic quote.
One thing I did approve of is Gillian Henderson looks at that will that says neither his wife nor his wife can't remarry and his daughter can't marry, or they won't get inherited. Apparently does not hold up in court. So she's like, I told him, and apparently his lawyer at the time was like, I told him it wouldn't hold up in court, but he was convinced that they wouldn't contest it, and I'm like, they wouldn't have the guts, and so it's like, William McNaughton.
Yeah, it's like, even if they wouldn't have the guts to contest it, someone took a look and was like...
For like 5 minutes, and was just like, that's not how this works.
Yeah. So, while I'm not happy with how the kidnapping ended, I am actually okay with most of what happened in the murder investigation. And I'm looking forward to hopefully with Inspector Jack.
Yeah.
Yes.
/ I believe Murder on the Ballarat.
Yes.
Oh! You know what I haven't asked you, Des? We had 2 sexy times, one with Paolo.
Yes!
The doctor.
Yeah.
What is our sexy time count?
So this month in Bitch I'm Here for the Story, we have a partner count of 2, a nipple count of 2 as well, which is down from 3 in the previous book, and we have a breast count of 7, which is a decrease of 30% from the last book. And no, the nipple count was lower and the breast count was lower.
Oh, right, sorry. That makes sense. I was like, wait, her partner count is higher.
Yeah, I need to add that one to the graph that I've got up on my computer.
Send me a picture of that graph and we'll put it over here. Like, we'll put the counts here and put that there. And I'll be like, look at our data! Because data is sexy.
You're not nerds.
Anyway, so that's what I'm looking forward to. Is in the next book. I'm looking more Jack and Franny, please. More Jack and Franny.
Yes.
And hopefully, the appearance of
Yes.
Or, what if WPC Jones is the romantic interest for Dot?
I can only hope so much.
I would love it. I don't think that's going to happen, but, you know, one can.
You had Jenna.
Because Mac, or bring back Mac. Like, I need, there's a lot of strong ladies, we're not gay. I need more gay in this. There's not enough gay, you guys.
They had a lot of characters, and we talked about this last time. There were a lot of characters that were Mac-esque.
Yes.
That were like taking the Mac that you see in the show. There are several.
I see a lot of Mac in.
Yes. Gillian Henderson, Bungie, somewhat in more in the way that she relates to Phryne.
Yes.
That is a Mac type. And I feel like we're probably going to see a lot of Mac types, but I would really love to have the out lesbian, older lesbian Scottish woman. Like,
give me that. Like, I mean, we all need an middle-aged lesbian Scotswoman in our life. Like, that's something we all need. I mean,
We do.
Of course.
That's not gay enough for me, eh?
Or gay.
I'm queer, and I am dissatisfied now, kids. Welcome to the show. Anyway, I think that wraps up this particular book. Please join us next time for Murder on the Ballarat, which this is going to push our schedule back, obviously, because we haven't read it since we had to re-record it. It probably means that now we're going to switch to more end of the month coming out. So, I really apologize. Thank you for bearing with. We will always now do a ritual audio test to make sure that the audio is working. Zoe, where can people find you?
Twitter @_zengirl_ until I change that to something that's way easier to find. My writing is on simplysubtext.wordpress.com, and I am on Patreon.
Guys, where can the world find you?
You can find me on Twitter and YouTube as Dazzles. On YouTube, I'm mostly talking about books and also doing a playthrough of Pokemon Gold and Silver with Dale Kingsmill at the moment, so that's a fun series that people should be checking out. I got a new Pokemon in it recently, and it's named after you, Kerry. Kind of. I got a Vulpix, and there's only one name for it.
That makes me so happy. I like Vulpixes. I'm totally fine with the Vulpix named Kiri. Kiri. Anyway. I am really cool. I am, of course, Kiri Callaghan. You are on my YouTube page. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook under Kiri S. Callaghan. Under Twitter, I'm just Kiri Callaghan, as well as on Twitch occasionally, but I have not streamed in a long time. I also have a Patreon and a blog, which you should definitely check out. And if you like Zelda, check out Zelda Universe's Realms of the Wild every other Saturday. We have one coming up this next Saturday, which I believe is Saturday before Halloween. It's really great. I super enjoy it, and I get to work with some amazing. Thank you so much for watching. We love you, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye!
Bye!